Hello everyone, I hope you're all keeping well, healthy and happy. So in this video I thought I'd tackle an interesting question. How do we define right behaviours versus wrong behaviours? Or morality versus immorality? Where do we get our morals from? It's a pretty interesting question. Now, what's also worthy of consideration is that immorality is more or less analogous with nihilism. And a lot of people will say, how's that possible? What do you mean by that? Well, you'll find out later on. So, looking specifically at morals, whether we look at it theologically or whether we look at it philosophically, you find that there are certain universal morals that have stood the test of time. So let's take a look at the theological, for example, the Ten Commandments. Two stand out quite strongly. Thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not steal. Right? We've incorporated these two ideals into our legislature even in modern times. Why is this? Because if you think about it, biblical scripture is thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, right? So how come we have those enshrined in law? And why is it so universal? Well, it's pretty simple. If you look at any civilization on Earth, particularly historically, they've all developed based on one thing, and that thing is trust. Okay? If one individual can't trust another individual, so if you can't trust me, or I can't trust you, that's a pretty dicey sort of situation to be in, right? Because we can't do anything, we can't communicate, we can't think out ideas, we can't build anything. It just becomes an adversarial relationship, doesn't it? Right? So how do you build a society? Well, how do you build anything? What is the foundation of families, for example, or extended families, or tribes, or communities, or societies at large, or countries? How is all of that done? Well, the answer is simple. Trust, right? It's all based on trust. If you can't trust another individual, then you don't have a society. It's that simple. It literally is that simple. So, getting back to the two things we were talking about from the Old Testament, let's say, right? Although, actually, the ideas are much, much older than simply the religious side of it. But let's see. So, if I was to steal from you, and you were to steal from me, and then if I was to kill you or you were to kill me, well, what would that lead to? It would just lead to the death of us both. It would be a destructive act. It would be self-destructive, right? Not just individually, but imagine that being extrapolated to society at large. If every person was like that, that's self-destructive. Okay, imagine what happens. Well, that society clearly implodes. It just ceases to exist. There's numerous examples of that through history, by the way, of societies that couldn't trust, the individuals in them couldn't trust each other, and they just vanished. They became extinct. Similarly, we have such people today as well. So if you look, for example, at the radical Islamist, jihadist, terrorist, extremist type individuals that form, let's say, Islamic State or Al-Qaeda or these kind of societies, what do you see there? Well, you see that sort of implosion. You see that self-destructive, the destruction of other people being paramount in their ideals. There is no trust there. And so those societies implode. And people who are sensible in those societies want to flee to another society or another civilization where there is trust. So the question is one of erosion of trust, really. Morality and trust are inextricably linked. Because in order to survive, see, I think morality is derived from evolution, right? It's an evolutionary byproduct, because for us to survive, because we're a social species, for us to survive, we had to have some modicum of trust to build on, right? And morals provided that. The social contract, let us call it, provides that. Okay? Now, the destructive type of people that we were talking about, what are they? What is their core philosophy? What could it be described as? Well, it's fundamentally nihilistic. The nihilist's philosophy goes a little bit like this. If something is alive today, it's going to die tomorrow. Okay? That which exists today will cease to exist later. Now, objectively, this is true. Objectively, it's very true. However, it's of no use to human beings because it doesn't build trust, it doesn't build anything else, therefore it's a useless idea, right? Now, if something is that useless, because that's a useless piece of knowledge because you can't apply it to yourself today, then it doesn't give you a sense of meaning, it doesn't give you a sense of purpose, it doesn't add fulfillment to your life, it doesn't provide you with any of these things. That's nihilism in a nutshell, essentially. It's sort of a form of hyper-sanity. And this sounds very weird because a lot of people don't get this. Nihilists, particularly the sort of really clever people that manipulate society at large, the people that govern society at large, they're not insane. They are hyper-sane. Now, the distinction is a difficult one for a lot of people to make. They're psychopathic, but they're hyper-sane psychopaths. They've thought things through to the nth degree, the very end conclusion. And they're looking at life from that perspective, right at the end where all humanity is finished. And they're saying, well, let us bring humanity closer to it, right? That's their philosophy. That's what nihilism is. If you look at the nihilists through history, whether it's Hitler, Stalin, Mao, anyone else who's committed mass genocide, they've all been nihilistic nutcases, right? Or, again, perhaps they weren't entirely nutcases, perhaps they were hyper-sane psychopaths, right? They've all just wanted to bring a swift end to humans. And these genocidal tendencies, this self-destructiveness, this nihilism, is also, strangely enough, a part of our evolution. Or our biology, I should call it. It's not really a part of it. It's a leftover from the initial beginnings of humanity. Okay? When we started out as a species, we were purely animalistic. It was all about self-survival. We still have that part of our brains that we call the reptile complex, the R complex, the reptile brain. If you look at the way reptiles behave, by the way, they have no concept of trust in that regard. Right? This is a really weird thing, but that's... I mean, if you understand it, it's only because that's the way that the basic brain is designed. And that basic part of the brain is within us as well, by the way, right? So, if you look at snakes, for example, they have no problem eating their own young. There's certain arachnid species that will eat their own young as well. They're cannibalistic, right? But more than that, they actually eat their own progeny. This is a really bizarre kind of behavior. Like if you were to think about it in terms of guaranteeing the survival of your species, it's not the very best of things. But then no one ever said that evolution or biology has a particularly grand intelligence. It's just a basic intelligence. I've talked about this before. The point being that nihilism is a part of our complex. It's a part of that basic animal brain. And it manifests itself very strongly in our world. It really does. It also manifests itself in our other primate cousins, for example, chimpanzees. If you look at chimpanzees, a lot of people don't know this, but chimpanzees, when they go into these animalistic frenzies, are absolutely capable of ripping off the arms, the genitals. They perform genital mutilation, cannibalism, you name it. They engage in all of that when they become utterly animalistic, utterly driven to ferocity. You see? They become nihilistic. Nihilism is there. It's present in all living species. But what humanity managed to do, and what has allowed us to become the dominant species on the planet, what has allowed us to keep surviving, is actually the ability to supersede that because of, thanks to evolution, these marvelous brains we have. We can outthink biology. We can outsmart it. But then we have to have the capability to do that, right? We have to overcome our biology to some degree, whilst at the same time knowing that we are a biological life form. It's a very interesting symbiosis. There's very literally two parts of ourselves that are consciously and unconsciously fighting between each other. There's literally a battle going on in the human mind. And the point of what I'm saying, I guess, is that nihilistic aspect of self, that destructiveness, is always underlying in us. It's there, it's waiting to come out. And the only thing that seems to curtail it is this sense of meaning and purpose and logic and social cohesion. Okay, that's what curtails it. That's what prevents it from becoming destructive, self-destructive, right? Now, the other thing about nihilism, I'll say this, is that it is also something that produces a vacuous personality. A lot of people say, how can you say that? What does that mean? Well, it's very simple. You see, in order to have meaning and purpose in your life, right? In order to have any kind of meaning and purpose, you have to learn things. Okay, you have to add knowledge to yourself, and you have to process that knowledge logically, and then you have to create the trust that's required to use that knowledge, right? You have to build trust, you have to do all these things, but you can only do that, you can only evolve if you are adding to your persona, your personality, if you're putting things in there that make you useful to not only yourself, but to your society. If you're doing that, then congratulations, you're adding purpose and meaning to all things, all people, right? Your life, therefore, has meaning. But people that don't do that, people that give up on their own selves, on their own lives, what do you find? Well, those people become vacuous. The people without meaning and purpose become vacuous. Those are the people that you see, for example, that give into easy political ideologies that tell them they're a cure-all, like socialism, like communism, like Islamism, right? And Islamism is, by the way, a political ideology. So they give into those things. They're also the same people that sit there watching soap operas all day, or watching whatever the hell else other kind of garbage is on TV, or consuming whatever the media throws at them. They just take it all in, never ever questioning it, just becoming mindless drones, not because they're bad people, but because they haven't been able to reconcile their own lives with themselves. They haven't been able to find meaning for themselves. They haven't been able to find purpose for themselves. And that's a dangerous place to be. Because again, let me reiterate this fact that every major mass murderer in the history of human beings has been a nihilist. Whether it's Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, doesn't matter. Okay? That's the thing of it. There's an inner darkness that we always have to curb. And getting back to the point about morality and immorality, or right action versus wrong action, right action is doing that which enhances, fulfills, provides a purpose, and guides you to a better place of being. Something that's adding meaning constantly, okay? You're doing that. You're building trust, you're building relationships, you're building positive, useful things for your life and for other people's lives. That is morally correct stuff. Well done. If you're doing that, well done. But immorality is where you are destroying the faith and the trust that people perhaps have in you, or that you have in yourself. Immorality is self-destruction, going into a complete state of decay, allowing other people to do things in front of you, or that are damaging to other human beings, that cause mass suffering, and saying nothing. That's immorality. That's being immoral. Or ignoring it. That's also immoral. And the reason it's immoral is because you are contributing, whether through your action or inaction, to the destruction and the suffering of other people. It's hopelessness. You're not giving any meaning to anything. Okay, you're giving in to the sense of meaninglessness, uselessness. That's the thing that defines morality, moral actions, from immorality, in true terms. And interestingly enough, moral actions are always in accordance with natural law. And a lot of people go, we don't understand natural law. If you want to understand natural law, go and watch my video on it, okay? Because that will explain it intricately and in depth. But put simply, natural law adheres to those concepts and principles which allow humanity to flourish, civilization to flourish, okay? That limit suffering. Okay, it is a set of principles that enable you to live in accordance with nature in true terms. And that doesn't mean, by the way, let me very quickly say this. Living in harmony with nature is not what people think it is. Okay, that doesn't mean, you're out there hugging trees. Because quite literally, nature is trying to kill you, right? But at the same time, nature gave you life. It's the same dichotomy, right? That it's like the very thing that created you is the same thing that will destroy you, right? But that's the relationship that we have with nature. The creative and destructive forces. You see? It's all there. But what we're trying to do during our lifetimes, if we are to have any sense of meaning in our lives, is to prevent destructiveness. Okay? That's the whole purpose of our existence. We're anti-entropy machines, right? That's what we exist as. We're always sort of trying to stave off decay and, collapse and destruction and things like this, right? We're always trying to prevent that, if we've got any sense, because we want to guarantee the continuation of our genes or ourselves, or our children or whatever it might be. We're always trying to guarantee that keeps going, because that's kind of the point of the existence of any life form, really, right? So that's the thing of it. And so the thing of it is also that most people don't know these things. And this is very distressing. A lot of people can't figure this out for themselves, which is why they're lacking meaning and purpose, because they're not doing anything in their lives, and they've been made incapable of doing anything in their lives. That's the other thing about that. You see, hypersanity, the people who are hypersane, that are nihilistic in their thinking, because again they're viewing it from the end point of human evolution, they can very easily manipulate people without hope, without meaning, without purpose. Those people are very easily manipulated because they don't know what they stand for themselves. They don't know what they're doing in life. So when they're given a cause that is not their own, they easily adopt it because they're vacuums within themselves, like we said, right? They're vacuous within. They've got nothing there. If you dig deep down into these people psychologically, if you were to dig deep down, you wouldn't find an individuated persona in these people. And that's distressing. They can't tell you who they are. They have identity confusion. That is one of the reasons, by the way, why you're seeing this thing with the what is it, 70-something genders, right? We know biologically there's only 2 genders, and yes, maybe there are certain biological reasons why people end up with gender dysphoria, but for my goodness, this notion of over 70 genders, that's where it's coming from, that identity confusion. People don't know what they are from one day to the next, because they have no true rooted persona. Psychological imbalance is what's going on there. Okay? And I'm not singling those people out specifically. I'm saying there's a lot of people like that out there that are that confused. People that get into collectivized political ideologies are the same. Okay? If you ask a communist who they are individually, what do they stand for? Never mind what they stand against. What do you stand for? You ask them that, they cannot answer it. They only can identify themselves as part of a greater collective. They have no sense of individuated self. It doesn't exist. Okay? You ask an Islamist who they are, and their answer will not explain to you who they are as an individual, what they stand for specifically. No, it will parrot out and reiterate the very same things that make the collective what it is, because the collective becomes all. And that's identity confusion. A lot of people don't know that. That's identity confusion. That's what's at the center of it all. And it stems from this hopelessness, this lack of purpose, this lack of meaning, this lack of an individuated self. It stems from sort of almost nihilistic underpinnings, really. And that's what we have to get away from, because all of those things are immoral. That is immorality in a nutshell. Whenever you become collectivized and don't know your individuated self, you're acting and behaving in an immoral way. That is why I can say definitively, and I have done in a previous video, and people find this a contentious point, I don't know why, because it's basically common sense. If you're following orders in any collective, whether it's the military or the police, and you're not thinking about whether those orders are morally correct or not, you are acting immorally. You're behaving in an immoral fashion. If you're just listening to the political elites and taking their word for everything, you are behaving immorally. If you are listening to the media and not questioning what the media is telling you, and you identify totally collectively and parrot out exactly what they're telling you, you are behaving immorally. Okay? The people that are behaving morally are the ones who are individuals, who have senses of who they are, who have a sense of purpose, who have a sense of meaning. Right? You'll find those people, by the way, are your classical liberals, or your classical thinkers, your libertarians, your true anarchists, your true philosophers. Those are the people that you'll find out there fighting for freedom and truth and right action. And they can actually agree to disagree among themselves about many, many things. And they'll never devalue the other individual's opinion just because maybe it's a little bit different. But see, the collectivized people, they can't do that. So that's the thing. You have to have a well-rounded personality, and what that means is taking in knowledge, applying logic, using all the tools that you have, building trust in your own life among other people, making yourself useful. Those are the things that will create your individuated self. It starts from really basic things. You are an individual. And see, the thing with collectivists is, the collectivists would have you believe a whole bunch of things about yourself that are simply untrue. They want you to believe the very worst of yourself. They want you to give in to that animalistic, destructive side. They want you to live like animals. Just the R complex of your brain, the reptile brain. I want you, every one of you, who watch my videos or subscribe to my channel, I want you all to believe in the very best of yourselves. The highest ideals, the noblest principles, embody them. Because you can. There is goodness and greatness in humanity. Never ever let anyone tell you that that is not the case. There is also a terrible shadow, dark side in humanity. Right? There is. Historically, we've been capable of terrible things because we've given in to that animalistic nihilism. That hypersanity. Call it what you want. But the goodness is also there. The kindness, the trust, the compassion, the courage, those parts of us are there. We just need to find them, and we just need to build on them and become inspirational individuals for the people in our lives. Aspire to greater things. That's the point of this life that you have. That is the point of it. Okay? If you're a parent, to be a great parent. If you're a spouse, to be a great spouse. Try and understand things better. Understand yourself better. You know, that's where it all starts. It starts with the individual. It doesn't start with a collective. It doesn't start with following and doing what everyone else is doing just because they're doing it. No, you have to sit there and go, well, are these people, you have to look at them and ask, are these people doing any good for humanity? Or are they actually just collectivists? Are they just virtue signaling? Because there's a lot of people out there that do that these days. Virtue signal. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but when these sort of socialist, communist type individuals virtue signal, they're trying to portray, aren't I great? Aren't I fantastic? Look how good I am. Because they feel that all things need to be publicized. Right? But that is a lie. It's a facade. Because that doesn't... See, they're only doing that because everyone else is doing that. Those aren't their own true individual principles. If they were, if they concentrated on being better people themselves, those kind of people don't run around trumpeting their good deeds, incidentally. They don't need to do that. You see, I mean, there's a lot to all of this, but the basic point is that at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is being a better person. And being a better person entails lessening the suffering of others, because here's a universal truth for you. It's a Buddhist thought, it's also a Christian ideal, it's also in Hinduism you find the same thing. Life consists of a lot of suffering. And the point of your life, the point of my life, is to try and go out there and lessen that suffering for other people as much as possible. Lessen it for ourselves as well to some degree. Try and make the best possible choices we can. And it's not easy. And it should never be easy. Because if it's easy, then it's not. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not. You're not using your mind then, right? The point of this life is the most correct things we do are most likely the toughest things we do. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be tough. It's supposed to be, you're supposed to go, hey, I don't know the answer to this. What is the right thing to do here? When you're doing that, you're thinking for yourself, congratulations. Hopefully you'll be able to come to a conclusion when you're asking a question like that in your life and go, okay, well, this is how I can make myself the most useful by making this decision or by making that decision. Or here's, then you start applying different types of philosophy, whether it's utilitarianism, whether it's profit-loss motives, whatever it is. You can start looking at things in a whole variety of ways to try and ascertain and determine the most logical moral path to take. But you can't do that if you're starting off from a position of immorality. That's all I'm getting across here. Okay? Anyway, I hope that's been useful, because sometimes I just like to rant about these things, and I never know if it's going to be useful to people or not. But hopefully this will be. And I think that if human beings can understand righteous action, right behaviour from wrong actions, then we've got all the chance in the world of overcoming all this hopelessness and nihilism that's been taking over the earth like crazy lately. We've got to combat it, and the way we do that is by showing people that they have purpose, meaning, and they have a place in society and in life. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Take good care of yourselves, and God bless you.